I'd like to call to order the Central Health Board of Managers special meeting. It is Wednesday, July 24th, 2013. It is 5:36 p.m. Thank you all so very much for being here this evening. The first item on our agenda is citizens communication.
Madam Chairperson, we have one person signed up to speak, and he has read the rules, so if you allow, we will dispose with reading them
Okay.
again. Adam Schlossberg is here to speak.
Thank
Please,
you.
Adam.
Thank you, Carlos. Dear Board, it's a pleasure and honor to speak with you for the first time. My name is Adam Schlossberg, and I consider myself a vocal mental health advocate in the state of Texas. I am the executive director of a pro bono mental health entity named Beyond Today, and I've only been involved in this field for 2 years. My primary career of 20 plus years centered mainly in Fortune 100 entities, in middle to senior management, functions in finance, management, and strategy. Arriving in Texas 3 years ago, I quickly stopped working for AMD and joined the mental health peer support community, a change of immense proportions. Whole health. I had been fortunate at times in my career to be given 2 insurance policies. First, a PPO of utmost excellence, and second, an insurance coverage umbrella to pick up any of the co-pays, such as premiums and other costs, leaving me with an excellent whole health package at a cost of $0. A little over 2 years ago, I abandoned health insurance altogether. I wanted to sense what many of the non-served sensed. For me personally, my health care diminished, though I maintained a steady and stable health. Earning barely any income, I subsequently signed onto our LMHA, and I was horrified. My overall mental health increased due to the nature of my work. Yet my time at the LMHA created a decrease in my mental well-being. The same holds true now in also being a client of community care, although not to the same degree. In essence, for me personally, I am best served without the safety nets that we have. I find that deplorable and unconscionable. We must do better for our population. We must, and we can. I realize, having been to several of your board meetings, that you are often involved in quite a macro level perspective. I understand that, and I respect that, and I value that, and I realize that. At the same time, when we look at the forest, we cannot forget to look at the blades of grass. And I'm here to bring those blades of grass back to light, even if for just a few moments. I am filing numerous formal complaints today with both our LMHA and community care. More complaints from others may likely follow, and I fully trust that these complaints will be thoroughly investigated. In closing, I must state that I am very pleased with the management of community care. They have taken proactive steps to troubleshoot some of these items with me before these complaints have even been filed. There is a wonderful staff at Community Care, and it has been a pleasure to work with them. I thank you for your time. I would like to stay for the rest of the board meeting. I truly enjoy them. I'm sorry I can't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlossberg. I guess we'll be getting that information following on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. On to our consent agenda. Item C3 is being pulled. We actually have already taken action on that. Not specifically like that, but in an indirect way. So that C3 is not necessary. And we're also going to take C4 up separately and as a separate motion. So we'll take up C1 and C2, which is C1, approve minutes from the following meetings of the Central Health Board of Managers, June 28, 2013, and July 10th, 2013. And C2, receive the June 2013 investment report and ratify Central Health investments for June 2013. If I can have a motion for those two consent agenda items.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve consent agenda items C1 and 2.
Thank you very much. Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. And now C4 is a separate item. Approve the appointment of Mark Hernandez, MD, to serve as the Community Care Collaborative Chief Medical Officer.
And Mr. Juan Garza will make this recommendation.
Larry asked me to do this, and I gladly did it because I want to have some fun. All of you know Dr. Mark Hernandez. We call him Dr. Mark. I thought I would talk about something different about him that most of us probably don't know. He actually started his career in healthcare as a nurse. He quickly realized that he could do just as well as the doctors that he was working for, so he decided to become a doctor. Before he became a doctor, though, he studied biology and philosophy, so he's a philosopher. And even though he is a doctor, he did his work at residency at Baylor for the Seton family, and actually worked for Scott White for a while. He does some crazy things, even though he's a doctor, like riding motorcycles. He has been working as the unofficial chief medical officer for the CCC now for several months, but we need to, the board needs to appoint him. And so last night, the CCC did appoint him contingent upon the approval of the Central Health Board, and I really wholeheartedly recommend him for the position. He's a lot of fun.
And with that, Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the appointment of Dr. Mark Hernandez to serve as the Community Care Collaborative Chief Medical Officer.
Okay, a motion. And I have a second from Katrina. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And Dr. Coopwood, I think you abstain?
I don't know, do I?
Yeah, I think that's the way it was.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I
we'll note it
abstain.
that way. Okay.
Yes, Beth.
Congratulations, that's formal. I mean, although you've already been in. Okay, next item, let's see, is number 1. Discuss and take appropriate action on appointing a representative of Austin Travis County Integral Care to serve on the Community Care Collaborative Board of Directors as a non-voting advisory board member.
Yeah. And that's me, Larry Wallace. Thank you. We recognize in our work with the CCC the critical nature of behavioral health, and we have always felt like there would be a place and a role for representation at the CCC. And yesterday at our CCC board meeting, our board approved for representation from ATCIC to serve on the CCC board. And even though it's a non-voting position, we feel like strategically, as we develop our work through the CCC, this is a very important part of what we're doing. And so to have that representation at the table as we discuss strategies and as we work toward our district projects and the goals that come with that, we think that this is a very important, critical function to be represented with the CCC. So we ask that you will approve this appointment.
And the appointment is a representative, not a specific individual, correct?
That's right, representation.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Sure, and has Integral Care agreed to serve in such role?
Yes.
Okay. No other questions or comments? Okay, so I guess you want direction from us, approval on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so if anybody can make a motion to that effect, please?
I move that the board appoint a representative of Austin Travis County Integral Care to serve on the Community Care Collaborative Board of Directors as a non-voting advisory board member.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then there's 2 abstentions with Dr. Coopwood and myself on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 2, receive and discuss a report of the June 2013 financial statements for Central Health. And we have with us Mr. Jeff Canodal and Ms. Rosie Bella.
Thank you. Good evening. Rosie will do the presentation this evening for the Central Health financial statements as of June 2013.
Thank you. First, I'd like to go through the income statement, and this will reflect the changes that have taken place because of the finalization of the lease agreement. So our operating revenues, lease revenues are reflecting the $2.5 million in contingent rent that we received in June. So as you can see, our operating revenues are looking much closer to our budget than they have been in the past. And then in the base rent, we received $19.2 million in catch-up rent and the payment of $150,000, which will be our normal monthly payment now. So year-to-date collections of base rent are $91,000 for each month October through May, $150,000 for June, and then the catch-up $19.2 million. Okay. So our operating expenses and healthcare delivery, we incurred $2.8 million in June. So year-to-date, we have incurred $68 million at 52% of the $130 million budget. And in the salaries and benefits, we have a $401,000 expenditure and a $4 million year-to-date. And so that's at 77% of the $5.1 million annual budget. In our other purchased goods and services, we incurred $289,000 for June, and so our year-to-date is $1.6 million. So that's at 33% of the $5 million budget. Our depreciation changed a little bit this time because we had some projects that we were able to close out from construction in progress and move them into fixed assets. So you'll see that that's a little bit higher than it has been. $803,000 for the month, $2.6 million year-to-date. So that's at 92% of the budget. But as you know, that's a non-cash item, so it goes into the budget and comes out. So it doesn't really have an impact to our total budget.
But we will be over come year end, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. We had the East Austin and the North Central clinics were finalized, and we had some contracts that needed to be finished out, and so we've got all those in there now. So our non-operating revenues, property taxes, we collected $165,000 in June. We're getting to the end, so we're not collecting a lot of money now. We won't be really until October, November, December when our next levy comes in. So we're at $78.9 million year-to-date at 99% of the budget and of the levy. And so we're pretty comparable to last year. Last year we also had 99% of the budget and of the levy. And again, our taxes are levied at 7.89 cents per hundred, not at the 12.9% that the voters approved. And that will start in October. Our investment income, we made $28,000 for the month, so we're at $299,000 year-to-date, yay. John or Jeff, 149% of the budget, so we've had some good success there. Our interest expense, again, we accrued the interest all the way through the end of June. So we have $38,000 accrued for the month and $345,000 year-to-date. So that's at 65%. And as you know, we've covered 9 months of the year, so 75% of the fiscal year has elapsed. Our issuance costs for the certificates of obligation, we amortize those in September, so you won't see an entry on that until September. Our total issuance costs were $232,000, but they're 30-year bonds or 20-year bonds, so they're amortized over the life of those bonds. Our intergovernmental was $9,000, pretty minor, and it occurred early in the fiscal year. It has not changed. So we had an increase in net assets of $17.6 million for the month, and it reflects the impact of the rent collections as a result of the revised lease agreement. So year-to-date, our net assets have increased $27.2 million.
I have a question right here.
Yes.
And Ms. Vela, I know the answer, but I think it's
Okay.
helpful for others who are reading our financial statements to understand, in terms of operating expenses, specifically healthcare delivery.
Yes.
As you mentioned, we're 9 months into the fiscal year, but yet it only reflects we're at 52% of our overall expenses. So you may want to talk a little bit about the timing associated with why we're 9 months into the fiscal
and we
year, but
haven't-
only at 52%
Yeah,
of our expenses.
thank you for bringing that up, yes. Obviously, our IGTs have an impact on that, and we have an IGT scheduled coming up here on Friday that'll clear on our books on Monday, so we'll have a significant change to that. It's not a straight line thing. We had $24 million budgeted for non-public or uncompensated care non-public, private. And that has not happened up until, we have had a couple of IGTs, but this one that's coming up will impact that number. So, thank you, appreciate that. So, moving on to the balance sheet, let me, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, let me, Okay, so moving on to the balance sheet, our cash balance is $100,000 in our operating account. And then we have short-term investments, $133.6 million in total short-term investments. The investments are separated into current assets of $111.8 million. We have restricted assets, as you know, of $15 million for the future Sendero paid-in capital and $7 million for capital acquisition. So those are segregated into our non-current assets. And then we have ad valorem taxes receivable. Again, these are pretty small because we're into the non-heavy tax collection months. So we have $1 million balance. We have a receivable of $2.2 million. And of course, we have estimates for doubtful collections and then also adjustments of $1.9 million. And then we always have property taxes in transit for the last 2 days of the month that are collected by Travis County, but we don't receive them until the next month. So they'll be shown there as receivables. And then in our other receivables, we have a $4.9 million balance. We have an $831,000 community care receivable, and we have obviously another $4 million in our long-term receivables in the non-current asset section. And then we have, as you recall, the community care contract was transferred to CCC, but the payment was made out of Central Health, so we have a receivable there from community care, from CCC. I have to say that slowly. Then we have a Sendero intercompany receivable, some interest that's still receivable, and a $60,000 item in other miscellaneous receivables. And in our prepaid expenses, we have a $603,000 balance. We have that's a Seton mobile mammography van that's still being written off over a period of time. We have some prepaid tax collection fees and prepaid tax appraisal fees that we write off every month. We take a portion of it. Then we have unamortized issuance costs for certificates of obligation and prepaid insurance and $11,000 in deposits. Okay, and then in our non-current assets, we have cash and investments. As I mentioned above in the short-term investments, we have the $6.9 million balance in investments that are restricted, 6.9 in restricted for capital acquisition, and the 3.1 million from the certificates of obligation construction account. And then the investments that are restricted for future Sendero paid-in capital, the 15.1 million. We still have a $14 million Sendero paid-in capital that's unchanged, that's restricted. The working capital advance to community care, that's at $4 million. And the capital assets net of accumulated depreciation of $116 million. So for total assets of $274 million. And then on our liability side, we have accounts payable of $3.4 million, and that's composed of $1 million that's due to Seton for the tobacco settlement. We have $772,000 in trade payables from vendors. We have $1.5 million in estimated costs incurred but not yet payable for healthcare providers. We have $102,000 in outstanding checks, $16,000 from MAP claims, and $30,000 in other miscellaneous liabilities. In the salaries and benefits payable, as you know, at the end of the month, we accrue whatever's already been incurred but hasn't been paid. It's still a liability to us for the salaries, and then accrued leave balances and any fringe benefits that are withheld but haven't been disbursed yet. Our debt service is the $1 million balance, the principal that's due in March of 14, and the interest that we accrued through June. And then the deferred tax revenue is $894,000 balance that reflects the original levy of the $80.2 million reduced by the adjustments from the appraisal district and the $78.7 million in property taxes collected for the year, so a little under $900,000. And debt service payable long-term, we have a $13.2 million balance, and that's from the $16 million that we issued in 2011, less the current portion that's due within 12 months, and less the payments that we made in 2012 and 2013. And each year we make that payment in March. So we have total liabilities of $19.4 million, unrestricted net assets of $136 million, the construction account that we talked about of $3.1 million, capital assets, because that's restricted, at $116 million, total net assets of $255 million, and of course total liabilities and net assets of $274 million. Do you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements?
Okay.
No?
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, number 3, discuss and take appropriate action on an amendment to the fiscal year 2013 budget for the Community Care Collaborative.
Could I interject
Yes,
something
sure,
here?
Sure.
We considered these next 2 items in the Budget and Finance Committee, and we heard them together before we took a vote. I don't know if you want to do that in here as well.
Sure, we can do that, and then we take separate votes.
Separate
like we do.
votes,
Okay,
but
sure.
just hear both items
Sure.
back to back because they're somewhat related.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Knudl, CFO. With me is Sarah Cook, and she will be talking a little bit about the next item, number 4, that we're taking together on this. This item is relates to approval of the CCC budget, and under the master agreement, the powers reserved to the Central Health Board require approval of the Community Care Collaborative annual budget in addition to material deviations this is a budget amendment. We certainly consider it material. So we're, have met with the CCC Board of Directors yesterday, and the budget amendment was approved contingent upon the approval of the Central Health Board. And as was mentioned, we did discuss this at Budget Finance earlier today. Excuse me. Just as a reminder, the startup budget was approved earlier by the CCC Board and the Central Health Board of Managers, and it was a what I call the startup budget that was necessary to just begin operations related to our Deseret projects and our existing healthcare delivery services that existed in Central Health previously. Also stated that it was a startup budget, and we would be back for budget amendments, and here we are for our budget amendment. We do anticipate that this budget amendment will be the final budget amendment for 2014, subject to any unanticipated events, but we do feel like it's will be our final amendment. Jumping to the actual amendment, on the left-hand side, excuse me, for fiscal year 13, you see the approved budget. Our initial Deseret revenue related to our demonstration year 1 funding from HHSC, and then under uses you see the uses for healthcare delivery and Deseret project costs. The middle column is the budget amendment that's under consideration this evening, and then the far right-hand column is the amended budget, basically adding the two together. So you'll see, beginning with uses under the amendment column, you'll see under payments for indigent care, you see a $17 million funding amount from Seton, and almost a $3.6 million amount from Central Health as our sources of the funding sources for the budget amendment. And you'll also see under uses an amendment of a little over $14 million related to healthcare delivery, and our Deseret project cost of almost $6.5 million, which brings us on the Deseret project side, restores our initial funding that we got from our DY1. So you see up in the upper left-hand column, we initially received $8.9 million, and again, we've restored that budget. I'm going to dive into the healthcare delivery detail to give us a little more detail on what those line items are. So within healthcare delivery, we have a line for healthcare delivery services, which are the contracts, the provider contracts that have been previously approved by the Central Health Board that have moved over to the CCC that are similar terms and conditions related to that. I'm going to skip over real quickly the operations contingency. The service expansion funds really are just a dollar amount. It's more or less a placeholder in the event that we do have any kind of service expansion requirements related to this very short period of time between today and the end of the year, which is September 30th, of $100,000. At this point, I really don't anticipate us needing to consider using those, but nonetheless, there's some funding for that. The operations contingency is the difference related to our budget, our funding sources, and our uses. And one of the things that we needed to consider in constructing the budget is that in our subsequent year, fiscal year 14, we will not receive or be eligible to receive Deseret funding until the end of January. So as we roll into the new year, we certainly would want to have some operations and some funding to continue operations. So we would expect at a minimum these amounts to roll in to the new year. And kind of as we talked about it in budget finance, it's really something that would drop down to the ending balance and then would roll into the new year. Some of our contracts actually have requirements where we make payments the first day of the month. So in some instances, we may be making payments on October 1st. So we certainly want to have some operational flow in order to not cut that close. And then again, you see the Deseret project cost of $8.9 million. In healthcare delivery services, as I mentioned, these were contracts that were previously approved by the Central Health Board. Our initial approval action consisted of the 6 contracts you see up on the top. And then down at the bottom were proposed service contracts that the CCC Board of Directors approved yesterday that include Lone Star Circle of Care, El Buen, and Sendero. And in addition to El Buen, at the last Central Health Board of Managers meeting, you approved a service expansion for that contract, and that amount's included in the CCC budget. Just to give a real brief recap on our Deseret projects, the CCC submitted 14 Deseret projects with a value of $237 million to CMS. We received 9 tentative approvals of those projects. In addition, we received 1 tentative approval with valuation adjustment, and then 4 of the projects were not initially approved. We have resubmitted all the projects back to CMS in addition to the valuation adjustment to justify the valuation shave that they were taking off of that project. We did withdraw 1 project, and we're working on submitting a replacement project related to patient navigation, and it will be an identical value of the project that we withdrew, the musculoskeletal project. Again, just as a reminder, beginning demonstration year 2, our metrics must be achieved in order to be paid. Our primary metrics in most of our projects relate around project planning, and our project valuation for demonstration year 2 is a little bit over $54 million. Our Deseret project costs in our budget include Deseret project management, costs associated with achieving those Deseret project metrics, and then health information technology development, which is the proposed contract that we'll be talking about here in just a second. Because I want to get up my favorite slide here, which is the 5-year timeline. We are in our demonstration year 2, which is the planning phase, and that runs through September of 2013. 3 more years to go. Demonstration year 3, implementation, and then 4 and 5, performance and outcomes. So as I think, hopefully we always say, really tight timelines, a lot to do in a short period of time. So I'm going to ask if there are any questions or if we want to roll into our next item. Okay.
My name is Sarah Cook. I'm the Medicaid Waiver Director, and I want to talk to you and explain the proposed statement of work between the Community Care Collaborative and Centex System Support Services, which was approved yesterday by the CCC Board of Directors. And as Jeff references, reserve power for this board to also vote on that because the contract exceeds $100,000. We're talking about a contract for $364,800 between the CCC and CSSS that will support the immediate work that we need to fulfill our DY2 metrics around data and planning for certain HIT activities for certain projects. but also we'll start the work that's required to support everything that we're doing in the CCC, both for DSRIP projects, and that last, Jeff's favorite slide was coming up in the next 3 years, but also for the whole, thank you,
I'll put it up there.
the whole body of work that we're doing aside from DSRIP, which is growing day by day, right? So this contract starts us on that work. What it does is it provides staff support to the HIT interoperability work group, which many things are being done in work groups now, and this particular work group brings together key people involved in data exchange, electronic medical records, and the associated legal policies that might accompany issues related to that. Thinks about how we're going to create the structure that we need. So this work group will be supported, and 4 task groups that have spun off from this larger work group will be supported, and these are going to do the work of collecting exactly what's going on out in our community around health information technology and exchange, providing information on what systems are in place, and even going so far as to set up perhaps prototypes of programs and systems that we might want to invest in later down the road. So they're going to be doing a lot of information gathering, a lot of knowledge sharing, and a lot of informing the work of this larger work group. The work product out of this contract and out of these smaller task groups will be in the shorter term vision to provide our HIT project manager here from COPE with the data that's needed to write up these DSRIP milestones for DY2. And then more broadly, it's going to inform the, and I'm getting a little out of my depth here, so bear with me, inform the technical architecture that we're going to need to support both the DSRIP strategies and other CCC strategies.
So in a nutshell, what I think you're saying is we're kind of threading a needle where we're getting our DSRIP requirements, but we're also planning for a bigger, I'll call it HIT, Health Information Technology solution related to the CCC objectives, all kind of in one process.
We're threading a needle in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Our products, just to contextualize the size of this contract, the $364,800 will be used to create the material needed to pull down $4.4 million in associated DY2 milestones. So some of the work product will be used to fulfill our DY2 obligations, and those are worth $4.4 million. And there are 4 projects for which we'll be using this material. And I think that pretty much concludes it. This work will start upon contract approval and wind down, I think, in mid to late October. Get us through DY2 and then beyond as needed. And as Jeff said, sort of give us a vision of what's going to need to happen next to support both more DSRIP work and then the larger activities of the CCC.
Questions, comments? Katrina, would you like to add anything to that from Budget and Finance meeting?
No, except that we did discuss this quite a bit. We had questions, good discussion, and ultimately voted to approve both of these items in the Budget and Finance Committee.
Okay. So they're coming forward as a recommendation from the Budget and Finance. We can take these up separately. All we need is the motion on each one, but we'll take one at a time.
Okay. I move that the board approve an amendment to the Community Care Collaborative's fiscal year 2013 budget as presented by staff and approved by the Community Care Collaborative Board of Directors.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any further discussion? Any other questions on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then Dr. Coopwood abstains on that one. And then number 4 is also coming as a recommendation, just needs a motion.
I'll also move that the board approve the Community Care Collaborative entering into an agreement for health information technology services with Centex System Support Services in an amount not to exceed $364,800 as presented by staff and approved by the Community Care Collaborative Board of Directors.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or discussion on that request, on that motion? No? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and Dr. Coopwood abstains on that one also. Okay. On to number 5. Receive, discuss, and take appropriate action on a proposed amendment to the bylaws of the Community Care Collaborative. That's, hi Beth.
That's me. Beth Devery, General Counsel for Central Health. You have before you a memo and a red line version of proposed changes to the Community Care Collaborative bylaws. You'll note that most of the changes are not significant, but they are really adjusted to basically address the operational needs of the CCC. Primary changes are to change the name of the Community Services Committee to the Advisory Committee to better reflect the role of the committee and how it will operate within the CCC. It also clarifies that officers of the CCC can be either board members or appointed, Dr. Hernandez being an example of one. It changes the committee meeting notice date from 5 days to 3 to be more in line with what the meeting notice is for the actual board meetings, so that we're just aligning those two dates. And we did take out the language about a seal. We're not anticipating that the CCC will have a seal. That's kind of an archaic corporate structure that's not being used much anymore. So those are the primary changes. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any questions?
And I will note that these were presented to the CCC board yesterday, and they did vote to approve the amendments to the bylaws contingent upon approval of the Central Health Board.
Okay. Okay, so I guess if ever, you have a question,
I just
Rebecca?
have one question. Will you explain again why the meeting notice is being changed from 5 days to 3 days?
It's to be in alignment with the regular meeting notice period, which is 3 days, so that we don't have a 5-day notice period for committee meetings versus a 3-day notice, since the board members will be serving on the committees, to cause less confusion, essentially. So it's the same notice period for both.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're looking to approve the changes today? Okay?
Yes, please.
If everyone's okay and comfortable with this, can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the proposed amendments to the Community Care Collaborative bylaws as presented by staff and approved by the Community Care Collaborative Board of Directors.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Dr. Coopwood abstains on that one also. Okay, thank you. Number 6 is to receive and discuss the CEO's report on the following central health activities. A, the procurement activity. B, the current communications outreach statistics. C, the medical access program and eligibility services, including enrollment and activities. And D, the community care collaborative. Mr. Wallace?
Okay, and Christy, where are you? All right, and you can get ready. All right. The first report is your procurement activity report, and this lists all contracts greater than $25,000 from June 12th through July 7th. And as policy, we ask that you look at these vendors, the JSA Health LLC in particular, just to be sure that there's not a conflict of interest. If there is, that you would file the disclosure that talks about that relationship within 7 days. Your second report recaps communication outreach. Again, this is for the period of June through July, and it shows the different events which staff attended, meetings in the community. And it also shows your earned media for the same period of time. And as you can see, staff has been busy in the community, so that's a good thing. Your next report recaps ongoing projects and events, strategic plan, community engagement, the eligibility office relocation, medical school communications planning, and CCC communications. You also have a report on eligibility services, events and presentations, as well as community engagement activity. the next report details the 5 website that we have for our organization: Central Health, Eligibility Service, the Medical Access Program, the CCC, and the RHP 7 all have websites, and so this shows the activity of a number of folks taking a look at what we have online. And your next report is MAP enrollment, and I know Dr. Putwood has a comment. And I don't see Claudia here, but anyway, as you can see, MAP enrollment is up 22,456 during this reporting period. Any questions?
Well, I'd just like to say that I'm sure glad to see it going back up again. I was giving Claudia a lot of trouble when it was going down. Now we'll pat her on the back when it's going up, and Mr. Wallace too.
Well, they do all the work, and so.
But you get all the glory.
And I get blamed when it goes wrong. So, but anyway, and we know that's contributed to staffing, and some of that's seasonal. I think Claudia has explained some of that in times past.
And didn't you also tell us that it had been dropping because they were short some
Yes. Yeah.
folks, and so now they're
Right.
fully staffed
They
again?
still have some vacancies, but
Oh, they
they
do.
were able to hire some folks, and so I think you see the result of that. Okay, are there any questions on any of this? Okay, if not, Christy is going to talk to you about our strategic plan, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Christy Garby, Vice President for Planning and Communications. As part of the Communications Outreach Report, I just wanted to publicly announce that we are inviting input into the draft strategic plan at this time. The survey that's available on our website became available last Wednesday, the 17th. Since that time, we've had about 63 respondents so far. We have responses from key community leaders, individuals who are utilizing the services that we fund, social workers, staff from our various organizations, and staff from other providers as well as Seton. So a majority of the respondents thus far have agreed or strongly agreed that the proposed initiatives are going to address the issues we've identified, such as fragmentation of the system, cost, provider capacity, and health outcomes. And we will be continuing to collect that information all the way through August the 6th. On August the 6th, we will have a public hearing at 5:30 here at this office for additional public comment, the opportunity to give us additional public comment. And that meeting will also allow for a Spanish language interpretation if needed as well. So I just wanted to let you know. We've also been doing some media outreach around this to get the word out, and today the Community Impact article was up on their website. Austin Business Journal is also writing an article, and I'm working with the Statesman to see if they would be kind enough to put this opportunity out for their readers as well. So just wanted to give you an update on that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of Christy? No? Okay, thank you. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Number 7, receive and discuss reports from the board committee. One committee.
We're the only
That's
one
you.
We're the only one that's
Budget.
not on summer break.
That's meeting right now, budget and finance. Katrina.
We, the Budget and Finance Committee met right before this meeting and discussed much of what we've already discussed in here. We, of course, discussed the June financial statements and the budget changes for Community Care Collaborative and the contract with Centex. We also got an update from Community Care, preliminary budget from them. And we also talked about something, I think we talked in this budget, in the full board meeting as well, some proposed changes to our reserve policies, and we kind of got an in-depth update on that. And I think we want the full board to hear that, so the board will be hearing that. There's only a couple of people here who aren't in the Budget Finance Committee. Anyway, so y'all all heard a lot of that. And we received an update from Sendero as they progress and we get closer to the implementation of the Federal Health Insurance Exchange. So,
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Katrina. Number 8, discuss and take appropriate action on the 1115 Medicaid waiver, delivery system reform incentive payment projects, the Community Care Collaborative, including associated initiatives and other interrelated community partnerships. Okay, we're going to have 2 parts to this. One will be in open session, the other one will be in closed session. We will take up the portion in open session first, and then I'll announce the closed session portion. So we're going to get an update on the CCC, the meetings that you've had, hear from Larry, and also from Dr. Hernandez on what's been going on and what's keeping them up at night and what's keeping them busy. How about that?
Thank you. As already mentioned, the CCC board met yesterday, and our agenda included the appointment of the members for the advisory committee, and Beth already talked about the change of the name. It was called the Community Services Committee, and it was changed to the Advisory Committee to avoid confusion of what that title would stand for. And to remind you, the scope of this committee is to consider, adopt, recommend to the board a 3-year rolling capital and operating forecast and strategic plan. We're also to look at district projects and other projects to be funded, managed, and operated by the CCC. Also to discuss populations to be served with recommendations to our benefit plan, to our covered population. The provider network, which will carry out approved projects and provide services to the covered population. To discuss the overall healthcare delivery system to be provided by the IDS with recommendations to be forwarded to the board for its consideration, deliberation, possible modification, and approval, and to be included in the annual budget for the CCC. And again, the people that are serving for Central Health, our appointees are Larry Wallace, Christy Garvey, Jeff Canodal, Sarah Cook, and David Lampkin. And for Seton, their appointees are Dr. Sue Cox, Tammy Killebrew, Willie Lopez, Charlotte Thrasher, and Kate Henderson. So that is really where the lion's share of the work is going to be done through the CCC. We also elected the vice chair, which you've already heard about. We discussed the CC strategic plan, received an update on that, and a discussion on the development of the integrated delivery system. Dr. Hernandez gave an extensive overview of that, and we talked about the budget amendment that you've also approved, as well as the contracts that we moved to the CCC. So those were the activities that we had talked about yesterday. We'll continue to have our meetings, and we did have participation from folks outside of our organizations, and so that was very good to see. So we'll keep you posted, and I think that probably as a regular agenda item under this category, we would like to bring you updates as our work continues.
Okay, that'd be great. Anything you'd like to add to that?
Just a little bit. So actually, I can thank her publicly. I was going to do it after the meeting, but I can do it now. Marion wrote what I thought was a very nice story regarding the meeting that we had for the CCC board yesterday. And I could refer you to her article if you didn't already read it in terms of, what kinds of things we talked about yesterday. But I would like to just provide a little detail, and I'm not going to rehash the entire conversation for you, but I would like to offer up and echo Larry's comments that I think it's important that on an ongoing basis that we keep this board informed of the actual work that we're doing in the CCC and how that's progressing. One of the things that I talked about that I would like to spend just a few minutes talking about here is we've identified what we believe are the salient elements that we need to put into place in order to actually transform the delivery system from its current state into the ideal state that we are planning on having in place somewhere in the next 5 years. I think it will take about 5 years total to implement all of the various changes that we intend to see in the delivery system. And those are in no particular order, except for the first and the last. The first, because it's so crucial to what it is we're doing, it is the DSRIP projects themselves. And so, I offer up that the DSRIP projects and the CCC, even though they're not the same thing, they're really close to being synonymous when we talk about them. The DSRIP projects were designed to create either certain infrastructure elements or certain missing care delivery elements that needed to be in place in order to say that we have an integrated delivery system. And so it is actually doing the work of helping to create the integrated delivery system. The integrated delivery system is actually, however, broader than what those 14 DSRIP projects or even what the regional DSRIP projects can actually bring to the table. And but the DSRIP projects serve as the funding source for us being able to create the additional initiatives that we need to do to create the integrated delivery system. So right now we have a lot of focus on how do we get the necessary infrastructure in place to ensure the success of the DSRIP project. So you're going to hear us talk a lot about the DSRIP projects for probably the first year to 18 months. And then you'll still want to hear about them, but I think at that point you'll begin to hear a change in the tenor of our conversations to what is the sustainable infrastructure that we're creating in this integrated delivery system that will outlast the DSRIP project. Those elements of the DSRIP projects that are successful and are built into the infrastructure will just become part of the care delivery system, whether or not the federal government continues to have a matching program. The goal is to create sustainable projects. So, we're not looking for external funding to need to sit underneath these projects forever. We need to figure out how they contribute and how we just integrate them fully, both clinically and financially. It's both pieces that you have to create the integration for. One good example of that and a key element of the integrated delivery system is the development of appropriate health information technology. It drives almost every piece of what it is we need to have in the IDS. It is both the point of service health information technology that allows a provider to push one button inside of a computer with a patient sitting in the room with him or her and immediately know what all other providers know about that patient. Something we've needed, but that we're lacking because of the current disconnected nature of the way we process health information technology. And so I was pleased to hear that we're taking that first step towards moving that HIT project along. So thank you for your votes on that. But it is more than that. It is actually how do we actually take this information and use it to actually change the system? So it's both providing that provider the ability to provide great care at the point of service, but also how do we then aggregate data in a way that we can study it and look at the care delivery itself and decide whether or not we have actually achieved our goals, what do we need to improve, and how do we feed that information back. So I know through my work with the PI subcommittee of this board that is of great interest to you, and I'm hoping that what we build in terms of the health information technology will provide even more robust abilities to look at the care that we're providing and be able to improve that care over time. Common protocols and guidelines. So I think an important piece of transforming the healthcare delivery system is ensuring that anytime a patient walks through any front door of any service provider inside of Travis County, that we know that they're going to get high quality care that is protocol driven and that meets the standards of the CCC. And so in large part, the CCC is spending considerable time currently, and this work has been going on for a bit, bringing together a variety of clinical providers throughout Travis County into small groups to begin to talk about what are the shared common clinical protocols that we will approve and then implement throughout Travis County. And that work is ongoing. You will hear about that more as we move forward, because as part of the vetting process for all of these protocols and guidelines, eventually they'll pass through everybody's hands. And so there will be a point at which I'm sure I will be sitting in front of this board as well as the various committees and boards of the CCC to discuss with you in more detail what protocols and guidelines we have developed and the vetting process that we went through at multiple levels to ensure that these are the right protocols and guidelines for Travis County residents. Care coordination and patient navigation is an important piece of an integrated delivery system, how we actually keep care coordinated between providers and how we ensure that a patient can look at the maze, and I hate to say it, but all healthcare systems are a maze as much as we would like for them not to be. We have to make sure that patients can access those systems easily and that we can educate them when possible as to how they can self-navigate those mazes. And for those that are always going to be difficult, we always need to make sure that those patients have the appropriate assistance right at the elbow so that they can make it through the system without that becoming an impediment to care. And so we will have to spend considerable energies developing appropriate care coordination and patient navigation systems inside of the integrated delivery system. I've alluded to this already, but it's important that as we develop this system that we build into it the ability to look at outcomes and process measures and then to be able to analyze that and create actionable data. So this will be obviously well supported by the health information technology, but we also have to have the necessary analysts and the other individuals who are able to compile that data and help us interpret that data in a meaningful way. And that still isn't enough, because even if you build all of that structure, all you've done is create a structure that allows for reports. And reports have never changed anything. The only thing that a report does is give somebody the opportunity to read that report and decide if you're going to take action. And so you actually have to have systems that can take those reports, vet them properly, and decide what process improvements you will gain from that. And so we also have to build a process improvement structure that lives deeply embedded inside of the integrated delivery system at all levels. And so change management is not just for the leaders. In fact, I would argue that proper change management in the integrated delivery system will be at the foundation where care is being delivered. And so I actually foresee a system where the majority of the change management gets initiated at the points of care. So it is by clinicians, it is by medical assistants, it is by nurses and providers, and occasionally by patients. This needs to be the manner in which the integrated delivery system refreshes itself on a regular basis. Leadership is here to help facilitate the process changes that are driven by the people who are actually at the points of care. And we've got to get that part right, because otherwise leadership will only serve to get in the way. And I truly believe that. So we're going to have to learn to listen to frontline staff. The pointy end of the spear is the spear we have to is the point in the system that we have to listen to. So it's not necessarily at my level. It's how much can I talk to the people who are actually providing the care that will make for meaningful change in our system. And along with process improvement, we have to be willing to boldly innovate. So it is my belief that we cannot get where we need to be in terms of healthcare delivery by doing more of what we've been doing. So I'm not criticizing what has been done. I've been part of the safety net system. I've worked with wonderful people inside the safety net system, and I offer no particular criticism. I do say, however, that we can't transform the delivery system in the ways that we need to do it by just working harder and trying to do more of what we currently do. That won't work. We're actually going to have to examine the ways in which we deliver care and innovate new ways of providing that care, ways that will allow us to actually improve outcomes and improve patient experiences, but cost less money. Because frankly, we live in a financially constrained environment. We're never going to have infinite resources to provide health care. So how can we actually improve both the experience of care and the outcomes of care in the same setting of doing this at less cost? We can't do that by just working harder. We have to do that by actually innovating new ways of delivering care. And so we have to encourage that inside of this system. Some of that will come now as we actually do the design of the delivery system, but more of that is really building a system that encourages innovation and that encourages kind of an iterative process to be built into the system so that really frontline operators are the ones who continue to drive change, not from the top. And then lastly, sorry, my slide decided to cut out on me. Lastly, I think probably the most crucial piece of what we have to achieve, all of the things I just said we have to achieve, but the success in being able to achieve all of those other things really lies upon, can we change the culture of healthcare delivery in Travis County? So can we really begin to embrace the cultural change that we need, that care needs to be provided in teams, not by individuals, that patients are part of those teams. They're the reason why we're doing what we're doing, but they're an integral part of the team. And so we're not inflicting healthcare upon patients. We are teaming up with patients to help provide the best healthcare for them. And in fact, we need to kind of begin to move away from this notion, of disease-centered care, illness-based care. It is an important part of what we do in medicine. So I'm not poo-pooing the notion that we are here to cure the sick. We are here to help those individuals. But to truly transform the delivery system, we're going to have to begin to move more towards a model that promotes health and wellness. That these are the things that we really should be trying to achieve in the population. And so when you're sick, I should think of it as, how do I return you to wellness? If you might become sick, how do I promote your wellness? How do I prevent your wellness state from going away? We need to begin to refocus on wellness states. This is truly transformative. At least it'll be truly transformative for the folks that will follow us in these various roles 20 years from now, because they're going to inherit the healthcare system that we give them, and they're going to inherit how well we manage the wellness and health of this population. So what the jobs of all of us, the future board of managers 20 years from now, the future CMO of this organization, the future healthcare providers throughout Travis County, will get to inherit whatever it is we decide to hand them. And if we decide to continue to just focus on sickness models, they won't have any choice but to do the same, because that's what we're going to hand them. We have an opportunity to actually transform the health and wellness of Travis County if we accept that particular challenge, and I do believe that is what we should be doing. So in order to do that, it's going to require significant culture change, and it will require financial alignment. And because I think that from an organizational sense, that's what's necessary. Organizations have to look to their financial health. It is an integral part of any organization. And in order to begin to move the entire community of organizations towards this notion of health and wellness, we're going to have to seek financial alignment amongst the organizations to accept this new challenge of promoting health and wellness as opposed to illness models. We are beginning to see those changes in the national healthcare landscape as we move to more value-based purchasing as opposed to fee-for-service models, and I don't believe that we should be doing any differently. So I think that we will be having many conversations in the months to come about how do we successfully make that transformation. Because in large part, that's you. That's not me. My job is to bring you information, but those sorts of decisions are policy-based decisions that really live with the highest governance levels. And so we'll certainly have lots of conversation about that in the future. I'll end my presentation there. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments of Dr. Hernandez? Or of Larry? Okay, we're good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, that's it for the open session portion,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll be going into executive session. I announce that the board is convening in closed session to discuss agenda item 8 under section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorney, and section 551.085 of the Texas Government Code, deliberation of governing board of certain providers of healthcare services. We're back from executive session where we took up agenda item number 8. There is no further discussion or action to agenda item number 8. So now we have come to the end of our agenda, which is to confirm the next regular board meeting, date, time, and location. Okay, the next scheduled meeting, regularly scheduled meeting of the Central Health Board of Managers is on Wednesday, August 7th, 2013 at 5:30 p.m. at the Central Health Administrative Offices at 1111 East Cesar Chavez. So with that, we have come to the end of the agenda. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Okay, a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And that's it, we're done.
Nice job.
And Tom can't vote.
Here's the,